Hello,
All of you
good
Hello.
morning.
that we are able to do a Zoom presentation from between across continents. Um, we have two presentations today. I invite Dr. Patricia Donatian and Ms. Claire-Ania Virgile. Let me first introduce both of them, and then I'll hand it over to Dr. Patricia to continue to present. Dr. Professor Patricia Donation is a professor at the University di Artili in Martinique. She is specialized in Caribbean literature and art. She has written many articles and she is also author of 4 books. She's a very well-known visual artist, and she'll be talking about the creative resistance in the Indo-Caribbean women writing, which is about refusal, refusing to be forgotten, refusing to be simplified, and refusing to accept a history written by others. Shani Muthu and her contemporaries don't just fix the past, they create a new vibrant present where Indo-Caribbean women are the protagonists of their own myth making. And she has her presentation in 4 parts. I think she's not going to make a PowerPoint presentation, but she'll be
No,
talking through. Yeah, that is lovely. And the next speaker will be her student, Claire-Ania Virgile, who is a PhD candidate in English Studies and also photographer of Indo-Martinican origin. Her academic research focuses on the memory of Caribbean women of Indian descent through the lenses of comparative literature, gender studies, post-colonial theory, and she is also the author of the photo book Sacred Vision on Indo-Caribbean and Rastafari communities. In August 25, she was appointed as the cultural ambassador of Tamil Nadu by the state government as part of Reaching Your Roots program, and she'll be presenting on identities, Tamil religious heritage and practices in Martinique. So let me first invite Dr. Patricia to make a presentation, and Claire will follow her.
okay. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I'm very happy to be here with you for this presentation and this video conference. Um I will start right away saying that in Indo-Caribbean women writing, led by figures like Shani Mutu, Ramabaye Spinet, Lakshmi Perso, and Mahadai Das, the act of writing is never just storytelling. It is a subversive project of creative resistance. Creative resistance in this context is about refusal, refusing to be forgotten, refusing to be simplified, and refusing to accept a history written by others. Shanimutu and her contemporaries don't just fix the past, they create a new, vibrant present where the Indo Caribbean women are the protagonists of their own myth making. For these authors, history isn't a static record, it is a bruised landscape that requires readjustment to account for the voices of those who were silenced by the dual weights of British colonialism and Indian patriarchy. Around the concepts of creative resistance and memory readjustment that I developed in my own works, notably in L'Art Caribéen, Le Penser pour le Dire, Caribbean Art, Think It to Say It. My presentation today will be articulated in 4 parts, as announced. The first part will be about shattering the Kalapani silence. The second one about querying the archives. Then I will do a part about the linguistic rebellion. And then finally, I will speak about reclaiming the body. So, my first part is Shattering the Kalapani Silence. The journey across the black waters or dark waters, Kalapani, from India, to the Caribbean, often resulted in a fragmented identity. Early colonial records viewed indentured women merely as labor units or immoral entities. The Kalapani, Black Waters, was not just a physical journey, but a break in the historical record and another way to view women. For that, Mutu and Espinet and other women Caribbean, Indo Caribbean women writers use their creative resistance. They use a speculative or recovered history to fill the gaps or of the archives. They reclaim the urgency of the Jahajin, the fact of developing sisterhood in the boats, the ships, transforming a history of victimization into one of survival and creation. By centering the female experience, they shift the historical lens away from the sugar estate economic output and toward a domestic and emotional interiority of the laborers operating a readjustment where women are given back their voice. To develop the theme of shattering the Kalapani silence, we must understand that the Black Waters were not just a geographic barrier, but a psychic and historical one. In colonial discourse, the crossing of the Kalapani was often framed as loss of caste or social death. Indo-Caribbean women writers shatter this silence by reclaiming the crossing not as a point of erasure, but as a site of radical transformation. So this transformation operates as transforming this silence in the archives of the absent woman. In the official British Coolie Register, the women who crossed the ocean were often reduced to physical description, age, weight, bodily marks, etc., and a destination. Their reason for living, famine, widowhood, or domestic violence were rarely recorded. So in Shanimutu Lakshmi Ramabai Spinet's books, this aspect will be evocated, and notably the domestic violence. They will exercise also their creative resistance, notably Ramabai Espinet and Mahadai Das, performing an archaeological writing. That is to say that they will treat the gaps in the ship manifest as spaces where a woman agency lives. And they will do also a readjustment by filling these silences with internal monologues. The writers suggest that these women weren't lost at sea, they were refounding themselves. So that question of the Jajin, I don't know if I pronounce in the right way, that is to say the ship sisterhood is very important also in the question of shattering the silence of the Kalapani. One of the most potent ways the Kalapani silence is shattered is through the concept of the Jaj by ship brother and Jajin ship sister. So these authors break the caste silence on the ships, the strict hierarchy of the Indian caste system uh, is simply impossible to maintain. And people of all castes hate slept, and suffered together. So the authors like Shanimutu, Mabai Espinet, Ramabai Espinet, and Madai Das will show that there is a community and a real um, um, brotherhood and sisterhood that developed in the Caribbean among Indian people. And concerning the women's readjustment, while male history focuses on the Jai Bai as a political labor bond, women writers highlight the Jahajin. This was a secret female-centering network of survival. By naming this bond, authors like Shanimutu shows that the crossing created a new kind of family that I was explaining that wasn't based on blood or patriarchy, but on shared trauma and resilience. What they will put forward also, these women authors, Indo-Caribbean women authors, is the myth of the shameless woman. Historically, Indian women who crossed the Kalapeni were often stigmatized by their own community as shameless or spoiled because they traveled alone. But the Indo-Caribbean women writers would put forward that these women became strong women with the development of strategies to exist that made them strong and potent. They will also shift the narrative. Indo-Caribbean women's writing shatters this stigma by reframing shamelessness as courage. For example, in Espinet Swinging Bridge, the protagonist discovers that her ancestor didn't just leave India, she escaped a society that offered her no life. And they will readjust each time they have this strategy of creative resistance, shifting the narrative and readjust this narrative. And the silence of the Kalapani is replaced by a rebel's roar. The shame of the crossing is readjusted to become liberation, the liberation of the crossing. And the other aspect is that also language will become a tool of shattering. The Kalapani also represents a linguistic break, the loss of an ancestral languages and the forced adoption of English and then of Creole. Broken English, that is to say Creole, will be resistance. Instead of writing in pure British English, these authors use a new language made of a mixture of these Indian languages, English and Creole. This language, this new language, is a literal representation of the Kalapani crossing. It sounds like the ocean. It is fluid, fragmented, and refuses to be proper. By writing in this voice, the authors proved that the silence was never empty. It was filled with a new hybrid sound. The water did not wash away our names. It was washed away. It only, sorry, washed away the scripts that no longer served us. And finally, to end with that part, there is also the breaking of the generational curse. The silence of the Kalapani often turned inward, manifesting as domestic violence, as the repression of women desires. The shattering in the different novels is shown through, for example, in Mutu's novel, through sorry, the violence Mala suffers, and it is a direct result of her father's inability to reconcile his identity in a colonial land. And when Mala finally breaks, she doesn't just break her own mind, she breaks the cycle of patriarchal control. Her madness allows her to become a figure of myth, her hairy man, or the rich roles that give her more power than a sane Indo Trinidadian woman of that era would that sorry that an Indo-Trinidadian woman of that era would never have. Now the second part, querying the archives. In works like Serious Blooms at Night, Shanimutu notably offers one of the most radical readjustments of history. She will challenge purity between brackets. The colonial and patriarchal histories often demand purity in lineage and behavior. Mutu resists this by introducing queerness and disability into the ancestral narrative. The wilderness will become resistance. In Lantana Camara, Mutu's fictionalized Trinidad, the wild garden becomes a space where history is rewritten. It is a place where characters escape the rigid Victorian moral codes imposed by missionaries. And Mutu will transform. She will first express the trauma and the memory, and she will suggest that history isn't just in books, it is stored in the body. Prose readjusts history by validating trauma that official records would rather ignore. The specific role of queerness is to be a tool for historical readjustment in Mutu's work and in others. Focusing on queerness is perhaps the most radical way Shanimutu readjusts history. In the context of Indo Caribbean discourse, history has often been grounded as a gatekeeper mentality, preserving the image of the respectable Indian family and, above all, Indian woman to counter colonial stereotype of coolie savagery. By introducing queerness, Mutu doesn't just add a modern identity, she performs a historical intervention. Queerness is non-colonial time. Colonial history, colonial history is linear. It moves from savagery to civilization through marriage, reproduction, and labor. In Serious Blooms at Night, the relationship between Tyler, the nurse, and Mala, the patient, creates a cruel time. Their bond isn't based on biology or the traditional family unit. Mutu suggests that queer identities existed in the Caribbean long before Western liberalism arrived. By placing these characters in the past, she readjusts the archives to show that the Indo Caribbean community was always diverse, even if the official family histories erased those who didn't fit. So now the third part, that is to say, because time is going fast, I will skip a little bit. is linguistic rebellion. Indo Caribbean women writers often resist standard English as the sole vehicle for truth, and they will introduce a new tool, the use of creolized English and Hindi fragments. Through their way of using this new uh, language and new narration, these authors refuse to provide glossaries for Western readers, forcing the reader to enter the Indo Caribbean linguistic space. So they create a new dimension, and they enforce their new language in the international space. To change the history, uh, for them, one must first change the language used to tell it. By writing in creolized English, they perform a linguistic readjustment, forcing the reader to acknowledge a hybrid identity that refuses to be purely Indian or purely Western. They will introduce also some Caribbean strategies in their writing, notably the Calypsonian strategy. A fascinating aspect of Indo Caribbean women's writing is the adoption of the calypso and chutney traditions as a form of resistance. They will subvert the male gaze that traditionally Indo Caribbean women were subjects of songs, often being shamed for behaving badly, and they will subvert that gaze and transform it in a new free Roman gaze. Uh, Writers like Mutu and Mahadai Das, also Ramabai Espinet, pull these women out of the songs and they give them their own microphones. They use the rhythmic, rebellious energy of Caribbean music to structure their prose and essentially syncopating the rigid history of the British Empire. What they will do also is to readjust the narrative arc, because in traditional Western literature, a broken history is a tragedy. However, for Mutu, Espinet, Madai Das, a broken history is an opportunity. By resisting the urge to provide a neat, happily ever after ending, a neat language, they mirror the reality of the Indo Caribbean experience, which is inherently fragmented. The creative resistance lies in the refusal of the whole to be role according to someone else's definition. Instead, they celebrate the creolized, the so, oh sorry, I'm in a very bad condition on my phone because there is no electricity. So sorry. Yes, yes, I start again. Instead, they celebrate the creolized or hybrid self that emerged from the ruins of the plantation. The past is not a fixed point, it is a landscape we must constantly remap to ensure we aren't left out of the topography. In the same way, the Roman writers often create a new topography of the language. The last aspect of this question of rebellion through language is the vision of the language of the mad woman. In colonial literature, the mad woman in the attic, very famous, is a trope used to symbolize a loss of reason. Mutu readjusts this. Mala's silence and erratic behavior are actually fortifications. Mala stops speaking English, the language of the judge, the priest, of her abusive father, by retreating into a world of grunts, whistles, and mimicry of nature. She protects her shattered history from being colonized again. Mutu suggests that what the town calls madness is actually a successful survival strategy. Mala has created a history that exists entirely outside of white patriarchal time. My last part will be reclaiming the body, is also part of this creative resistance and history readjustment that this author put forward in their writing. For many Indo Caribbean women, the female body was a site of historical trauma, subject to double colonization of the empire and of home. The body is a site of sensory transformation, uh, and as well a carrier of inherited trauma of migration and migration. In Madai Das poetry, uh, the author often addresses the physical toll of labor and the desire to break free from the coolie stereotype. These writers portray the body not as a vessel for labor or reproduction, but as a site of desire and autonomy. So it's what we will see in the swinging bridge and also in Serious Blooms at Night. To write about an Indo Caribbean woman's pleasure or a refusal to marry is in itself a revolutionary act of historical readjustment. The other aspect of this reclamation of the body will be the sensory memory that will challenge documented history. Because the Kalapani crossing stripped Indo-Caribbean people of their physical records, the body became the primary archive. Mala Garden also, in the decaying house and among the overgrown plants, um, will be a physical manifestation of her memory. So the body is not only the body of the woman, but the body of the land. And this garden is an example of that. She doesn't need a family tree like in the swinging bridge because she lives inside history. She is history, and her garden is history. The scent of the Sirius, this flower with an heavy nocturnal scent, triggers memories that are too painful for words. This is speculative history using the senses to recover what the black waters tried to drown. As a conclusion, I will say that Mutu and Espinet's writing are, and the others also, are different paths of resistance. Notably, these two authors, I mean Mutu and Espinet, argue that official history is a patriarchal construct, but they readjust it through different lenses. For these women, history is out of joint. Creative resistance is the act of pulling the narrative, back into a position where the Indo-Caribbean woman can finally stand upright. They aren't just adding to the story, they are changing the angle from which we view the entire Caribbean experience. Through the use of linguistic hybridity, queer subversion, and sensory memory, Shanimutu, Ramabai Espinet, and others readjust the Indo Caribbean archive, transforming the Indian woman from a silenced colonial subject into a radical architect of their own history. While both writers all those writers are Indo Trinidadian, they use different tools of creative resistance to tackle the silence of the past. Mutu, for example, uses the serious flower, which only blooms at night, as a metaphor for history, a history that exists outside of daylight, of the daylight of the colonial logic. Mala's refusal to speak English and her communication, with insects and plants is a radical rejection of the language of the oppressor. Espinet creates in resistance using the mantra and folk song as historical evidence. When the paper trail goes cold, the song sung by the woman on the estate become the true archives. She corrects the historical myth that Indian women were rescued from India. Instead, she reveals they were often escaping social stagnation, only to find new forms of entrapment in the Caribbean. These writers prove that while the archive may be silenced, the culture is loud. They offer a future where identity is not something given by history, but something created through resistance. Thank you.
Ah, lovely. Thank you. And that was very clear, loud and clear. And in fact, it did not appear as if there was a power cut there. So it was clear. So may I open this? I mean, can we have a couple of questions now, or do you want to take the questions later after Claire has given her presentation?
Yes, I prefer to take the question now because as I am on my phone, maybe and there is no electricity, uh, that there it may have a problem, so I prefer to take them now.
I, under- I understand. So the floor is open for questions. Let the questions be short and straight to the topic.
Okay.
Please raise your hand and we can allow you to. Tanapal, Arun, Subbu, Vicky.
No questions.
No. If there are, I mean, I would like to know about how this resistance is being really received how this resistance is being received by people, or how it is seen. I mean, did you get my question? Hello, hello.
Sir, I think your signal is very low. Yeah,
My signal, yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I mean,
it's
I
your
mean, my
voice is
power is
breaking,
going.
sir.
I mean, couple of times I have had fluctuations. Maybe you can ask question on my behalf. If you heard my question,
It was breaking. I couldn't hear. Maybe I think you can
is it
type in
clear
the chat
now?
box. Oh, yeah, it's fine now, sir.
Is
Yeah,
Dr. Is Dr. Patricia there?
Patricia is here,
She's
sir.
gone. No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's here.
she's there. Yeah.
And your
Dr. Patricia, I was asking. I mean, you this entire thing is about creative resistance and so on. But I would like to know how is the resistance being seen by people or received by people? Dr. Patricia, are you there? No, I think she's not able to get.
yes,
Uh,
sir. I think the video is also off.
all right, she said she has a power problem. All
Yes,
right,
sir.
so should we move on to Claire then? Would you like to take proceed further, Claire? Yeah. Yeah, I just
Yes.
want to
Yeah.
mention one thing before you start talking, making your presentation. At the Roja Mutia Research Library, what we are trying to do is also to engage with the rest of the world through through such conversations, scholarly conversations, especially about migratory studies and mixed populations, especially in the Caribbean area, Indo Caribbean thing. So we are very happy to have both of you here today. So now,
Thank you.
would you like to start making your presentation now?
Yes, I think I will do it. She has a wait, yes, the phone just freeze, so she
Yeah, please go
cannot go
ahead. Please
back.
go ahead. If she comes
Yeah.
back, then we can take some questions at the end of the presentation.
All
And
right.
Ms. Claire, shall I share the presentation on your behalf?
Yes, you can share
Yeah.
the PowerPoint. Yeah, thanks.
So I think you can start.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Vanakkam. Thank you for having me today. So before I begin my presentation, I would like to thank Dr. Sundar Ganesan from Roja Mutia Research Library, and of course the team coordinators, and also to researcher Vignesh and my supervisor, Professor Patricia Donatien, for the support and guidance through this online lecture. Following the history of the Indo-Caribbean narrative on women, my professor really showed how history and the memory of Indo-Caribbean are related and connected, and how it shows a way of resistance. Sorry. So I would like now to focus especially on the religious side of this history. So I want you to look closer to the community that is often invisible, in the general history of the Indian diaspora. So Martinican of Tamil origin and their spiritual world, if I can say so, have built and maintained across more than 172 years of history. So we will be moving through the historical context, then the ritual with dance, ritual, and finally a more contemporary photography project that put the new generation at the center of this history. So next slide, please. Thank you. So before we can understand Tamil heritage in Martinique, we need to understand Martinique itself. So it's going to be a really short presentation of Martinique. So it is a small island in the Caribbean. It has been a French territory since the 17th century, and it became a full overseas department of France in 1946. What make Martinique culturally and historically unique and complex? But I will use the term surviving, because it's layering history of different wave of migration. So French colonization brought enslaved African people who became the demographic and cultural foundation of the island. That's the first part. And after the abolition of slavery in 1848, French plantation owners needed new labor. So that's where our history began. So Martinique identity today is what scholars call Creole, but in a deeper sense, a cultural hybridity and a long way of negotiation between African, European, Indian, and Indian influence, and also Kalinago. So although the homeland of the two most prominent Francophone writers, so Aimé Césaire and Frantz Fanon, who wrote a lot about race, colonialism, and nationalism for Black people. And Tamil heritage is one of the aspects less visible in this history. So next slide. Okay, so now we are in the theme of Indian presence in the Caribbean. So this is a very short timeline on the history of Indo Caribbean. So, and I also share with you some illustrations. So those are postcard, by the way, vintage postcard. Sorry about that. Okay, wait. Okay, I will keep continue if the sound of the dog don't bother me. So briefly into the history of Indian indenture between 1838 to 1917, after slavery was formally abolished, British and French colonized were in need of replacing these slave workers. So they introduced a new system named system of indentureship, sorry. So, following the abolition of slavery and emancipation, former enslaved people of African origin were required to continue working on sugarcane plantation, and many Africans refused to go back to plantation under oppressive conditions. So they would rather look to employment outside of the rural areas. So in order to sustain this financial game on sugar plantation, the owner resort to some of new system of exploitation. And due to the different social and economic issues in India, they migrated to various circumstances, so famine, natural crisis, and demographic pressure. As a result, these workers were mostly sent to plantation in the colony that produce sugarcane and especially in the French colonial influence. So as a result, 17% were hired in Karikal, Mahé, Chandernagore, and Yanao. So for the worker heading to Martinique and also Guadeloupe, the main recruiting were in South India. So most of the places were Tamil-speaking region, and less than maybe 10% from northern, like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh. And also, most of the migrants came from Dravidian culture, mostly Tamil. So in the case of Martinique, the Orly ship was the first one to carry 300 laborers in 1853. So that's when it began. And in Martinique, in Guadeloupe, sorry, it is in 1854, so 1 year after. So Martinique came first. So the deportation of Indian in the Caribbean as indentured labor was marked by harsh circumstances like disease, violence, and also mental distress. So the journey was 3 months on a boat, including homesickness, physical traumas we talked about previously on literature. And one of the most important and conceptual framework is the concept of Kalapani with the black water in Hindi, black water. It's referred to the sea crossing and has Indo its view has a religious infraction. So the majority were indeed Hindu, some of them were Christian and Muslim, but the large majority were Hindu practitioner. So under this new system, um, Indian laborers go to plantation in the Atlantic and Indian Ocean. So Guyana, Trinidad, Guyana actually came first. It was the first place when they, if I can say, tried this new system. So in Guyana, after that, Trinidad, Mauritius, Reno Island, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Fiji, and also South Africa. So the Indian presence in the Caribbean is what some historian call a new system of slavery, and that's not something I'm really agree with because despite all the difficulties of the journey, we cannot compare both with enslavement, but that will be another day subject. So following in 1853, approximately 25,500 Indian workers arrived in Martinique, and of course, the majority were from South India. So what's really interesting is how they just lure them to foreign lands under false promises. They promise a better livelihood, but actually the reality was totally different. They were working on sugarcane plantation and they were promised to go back to India after their 5-year contract, but it didn't happen for most of them. Just a few of them had this chance to go back to their country, but most of them just resign and say, okay, we're gonna stay. And it was the most purpose was, of course, economic one. So the journey of the Kalapani, the trans-oceanic crossing, also meant the loss of the caste and some tradition also. Upon their arrival, they faced social pressure in many ways, including the practicing of, like the practice, sorry, of the religious language, the religion, sorry, language, and education, and everything that made them close to India. So since its arrival in the mid-19th century, the Indian diaspora has been part of the French Caribbean, so in Martinique and Guadeloupe, in various manifestations of cultural heritage. Over the past 40 years, the experience of Indian indentured and their descendants has been the focus of scholarly research. Historians such as Sangaravelou, Laurent Farugia, Geneviève Letty, and they focus on this historical aspect. And people also like Jacques Letton, Monique Desroches, and Gilbert Ponama focus more on the cultural and artistic and religious um, facets. So these studies confirm the presence of the Indian element in Martinican culture. And what's really interesting is most of Indo descendants didn't know their history when they actually grew up. It take a lot of time and research, and also because it was also a big taboo to reclaim this identity. So in 2003, India started to noticing its diaspora with the Convention of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. So this convention of January 9 was a way to recognize in some way the presence of Indo descendant overseas Indo descendant, and that's why they started to launch this OCI, the card for the Indian diaspora also. So this period marked also the 150 years of the Indian presence in Martinique. So all the representation of India came at this time. Some people, some family who preserve the culture, and we'll see further in the slide. They receive yeah, it was like a tribute to them, and they received recognition from the political also in French in France, sorry, in Martinique, for their work on the transmission, yeah, of this history. Next slide, please. So the spiritual life they carry in some way was still maintained. So to do some quick comparative work with the deities and goddess and god. So on the left, you can see one of the most principal deity, also in South India, but in Martinique too, Mariaman. So on the right, sorry, adaptation in Martinique is more like the pronunciation of the name of this deity. For example, for Mariaman, Mariaman, or Maduravirai, Madivilen. So it is more like a creolized term of the word of Tamil folk deities. So those are the main one, because there is also different god and goddesses, but those are really the one that came in the first waves of in the labors when they first came in Martinique. So it was sometimes identified as Christian also religion, because they couldn't practice their religions because of the church and the colonial pressure. So some of them practicing both religions, so it creates a syncretism, and it raises profound question about identity, adaptation, and how resilience belief can create what resistant belief can create, sorry, under pressure. Next slide. We will have some example. So this is how the deities are represented in the temple. So community work is also part of the transmission of those cultures. So it is for sure religion, but how it's seen is more a way to maintain the culture from the grandma to the new generation. So in Martinique, the festival calendar also remained the same. For example, they celebrate Pongal and also Shlambani at the end of the year to celebrate the memory of the ancestor. And if you can see closely, the offering also are based on some food, traditional food from India. For example, vade is derived from the word vade, is some lentil, fritters that you can find in India also. Pavaka, the vegetable in Martinique is paroka. So you have a long list we cannot see today about words that still used in Martinique, in Creole especially, that has found its origin in India. So that's a very interesting word to do. Some people already did the research, but more and more time we can find other aspects, because what's important here is the fact that all this history wasn't transmitted like in some books, or I mean, some people do write books about it, but it is more a oral transmission from generation to generation. Next slide. So I want to focus now. So yeah, this is another example. So you can see the offering. Those are videos. So the instruments are tapu, traditional instruments, the camphor, the coconut. So a lot of elements can be analyzed here. Also, the sacrifice of the goats for the rituals. Next slide. So now I want to focus on the ritual from not a ritual, but a traditional dance. But it seems like a ritual because it's a sacred practice. So Nadron, according to researcher, is derived from what in India they call terikutu. So this popular in the streets theater, that's a similar way they use they do in Martinique also. So Nadron was practiced in the beginning of the arrival of the Indian in the mid 19th century, and from family to family, it's keep being practicing. So now you have a lot of dance in India. You have Bharatanatyam, you have Odissi, but this one, this dance, sorry, in particular, is very unique in some way because it really represents this community. So sadly, the new generation do not practice it a lot because most of the elders who knows the dance and also the song. So now you don't have the music and the sound, but the chants are in Tamil, but Asian Tamil. Even though we cannot speak it, they still kept the song about deities. So it is based on Ramayana and all the some scripture from the Ramayana and all the sacred books. So Nadron was also a way for them to maintain their culture despite the hard work. That's something really important to know. It wasn't just a way of like, it was for them a way to have their own moment, if you know what I meant, because they were hard workers and they work a lot, but at night they still took some time to practice this dance. And it was also, like I was explaining before, a way for the community to keep being together. And yeah, that's why Nadron is very important. So next slide. So projects and collaborative work. So the history of Indo Caribbean, but especially in Martinique, took many years and decades to be not recognized, but to not have this very taboo or critics in some way. So the new generation, especially dancer and artists, are trying to be part of the what I call the global Indian diaspora, because when we mention the Indian diaspora, we will think about more recent wave of migration in the US, in Canada, and so on. But from this very old migration from the 19th century for Indo-Caribbean in general, and especially for us in Martinique, we feel very, and I say we because for my ancestors and family, I'm part of it, but we feel less visible. So that's why in 2022, I published The Secret Vision. It's a book about the Indian diaspora and also the Rastafari community. We will not talk about today, but the Rastafari community was really important to me because they represent also a community of resistance, and the culture. So this book is a 80-page photo book with some text. It is available at Roja Mucha Library, by the way. So this project and also online project really fill the gap, I can say. Yeah, it filled the gap with all the diaspora. For example, I collaborate with people in Trinidad. So the I can express that because we don't have enough information, but the few information this person have and this other person have can bring together something very powerful. And the shift actually happened in 2020 during the pandemic, actually. And I think during the pandemic, a lot of things changed in the world, but especially as community. That's when communities start to grow up. That's when people actually start to use, this kind of format like we are right now in online and Zoom. So for me, it's really important to bring all the community together. So that's why I went to India last year and the year before to share Martinique actually and history. So this book is just the first step of many other projects and also my thesis research on Indo Caribbean women, but it's more on literature and art also. And on the third photos in the presentation, this is a group of young dancers from l'association Samala Savita with Émeric Merlin, who is also a friend and is one of the few male dancer in Martinique practicing Indian dance. So he practiced Nadron, like we saw, and also Bharatanatyam. So this new generation have both it in the past and also in the future because we want to preserve this history, but what they was care about is to show too much of the history because they really if I mean, how can I express it? So if we have the chance and the opportunity, sorry, to have those elements, is because the first generation really did their best to, um, preserve it. So in a way, we want to have the same approach, but still we can with association that work hard and also search researcher um, express it in the best way possible. So as a photographer, um, it was a challenge actually to be part of the ceremony, for example. So if you have the opportunity to have a look in the book, um, I really do my best to have some respectful approach as a photographer because we know many photographers will use some non-ethical approach on taking photo of people. So I'm really really happy and glad to be one of the first person to have access in this ceremony, but also to have the permission to take photos. But in general, what I wanted to say today is I'm getting emotional, but it is a pleasure to, show Martinique in the global Indian diaspora, especially for India, because I know a lot of Indian people and Tamil people don't even know Tamil Indo descendant exist. And what's very important for me and for most people is to show that no matter what your history, no matter what the circumstances, sometimes things happen, history happen, colonialism happen, we still resist and we still show that being together actually work for the best. Thank you for listening to me. And the next slide, I think I show some, sorry, bibliography, but it's fine.
Yeah, is it over?
Yeah, the next one. If someone
Book?
want to go further, yeah, in the
Yeah, yeah.
research.
So then, I think the video is not playing.
Oh,
Okay.
it's okay. Yeah, it
All
was
right.
just from
So thank
reference.
you. Yeah, thank you. That was really lovely. I think there's one question already. Actually, more questions from Mr. Gandhi Balasubramanian. And in the chat, you can see that. He's
Yeah, I
asking
can.
what are all the annual festivals and the rituals they perform, and what about the performing arts? Are they still in practice? And ballets and the old ballets, do they still sing now? And do you still possess any Tamil? I mean, do you possess any Tamil documents or manuscripts? A part of that I
Okay.
want to ask you is, related to that is, is there some kind of an archive, a state archive or an archive or a library which holds this kind of material? Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I will start with your question and after the chat
Yeah,
question because it's longer.
sure.
So, like I mentioned, many researchers actually did the deep work, like the archive work with the contract and family trees and so on. So there is an archive, but not something like Roja Mucha Library,
Yeah, yeah.
something really, yeah. So it is in the General Archive of Martinique. One project is really interesting is the Liste des immigrants. It's a list of the name, of all Indian descendants, with all the family, in one line. It's a big, huge document, and for that, they research in the contract, they research in all the, internship contract and so on. So there is some document, but not something really condensed and that you can easily access. So for many years, it was just access only for, researcher. So
Okay,
that's also something I'm working on.
lovely. And Mr. Gandhi's questions?
So what are the annual festivals? So
Yeah.
if I can say, so that's just me, but the first, it's not a festival actually, but it's more a commemoration. The first one is the 6th of May, the official arrival of Indian in Martinique. This day is very important because it's a reminder, of our ancestor and their work. So during this day, which is not a celebration, in the first part they did some speech, and after that of sure dance and music and also sharing Indian culture, the new Indian culture. So the first one, the 6th of May, also Pongal is celebrated. Pongal, the Tamil New Year also, but the person didn't mention it if it is the new festival or the ancient, because nowadays people do celebrate Ganesha Chaturthi, Deepavali, and so on. But at this time, they were just Pongal and a few of them. So yeah,
Pongal
nowadays they do
in
celebrate.
January. Pongal as in January.
Yeah, in January, exactly. Yeah.
And when did actually the Vinayagar get into this region?
Sorry, I
I
didn't
saw
understand.
images of Vinayagar.
Yeah, we even
Yeah.
yeah.
When did Vinayagar come into the Caribbean? Did the first migrants take the idol with them, or Vinayagar idol came much later?
Okay, so about the idol you saw in the photos and videos, most of them were not brought from India. They were made in Martinique, like the rock you see. They just took some rock from the river, painted, and that's it, But the Vinayagar you saw on the photo is more recent. Is more
Ah,
recent because around the 80s people start to traveling, to India, so they brought, status and deities, but no, it is not an Asian one. But the Asian one are the rock you can see, the yellow rock. Yeah.
but did they very people worshipping Vinayagar even before?
Yes, I think so, but it is not the main deities. It
Ah,
was because the deities they pray was for their protection. So Mariamman, Madura Virai, but no, the Vinagas came after. Yeah,
all right. Thank you.
yeah.
So, are there any other questions from people? So, let me expand that question from Gandhi, Mr. Gandhi. He asked about ballets. Are there any ballets people sing or chant
Yes,
or chant?
yes, yeah, yes. That was actually it was the only thing they preserved. Yeah, the chants. But according to research, when a Tamil speaker nowadays listen to it, it didn't sound like Tamil because it is Asian Tamil
Hmm.
mixed with Creole accent at work and words. Sorry. So yeah,
Is there
but
a
you can
recording
find
of that?
some.
Is there a recording? Do you play that in loudspeakers,
No,
or you just sing them in person?
they just sing them in person because some family has some books, so they wrote the lyrics and they just chanting. But the one that has this knowledge are Pandit, Pujari, or we say Pusadi.
Mhm.
So, for example, I don't know the thing. I can, vaguely remember it because I listen to it again in during ceremony only. But that's a sacred knowledge for Pusadi to have.
All right. One more question related to this, documents. Did people leave behind any written documents?
No, sadly for Martinique, no, no. Even the institution try to hide, just the contract and so on. So no, in Martinique we don't have the luck to have the document, but in other English-speaking islands in the Caribbean, yes, some have some documents.
All right. Any questions, please? I see some researchers.
But I wish I would have still with you
Okay.
and yeah.
Yeah, I think next time you are in Chennai, you should probably
Oh,
make a presentation in our library.
oh wow,
Um,
thank you. I can
maybe
go now. I'm kidding.
yeah,
If I can, I
uh,
will.
yeah. I wish we can invite you now. We are middle of some building or I mean constructing our building. So maybe next year it'll be ready.
Oh, wow, thank you. And I think maybe we can still find something. We don't have to be negative about it. So maybe, in India there is some archive, some way that mention this. Yeah. There is this possibility according to research. So it may
Hmm.
take many years, but I think, yeah.
There's one question from Samantha Gurun. Since
Yes.
Indian society is a very caste dominated society, just curious if the caste system traveled here to Martinique.
Wow, really interesting question. So at first, I think in the boat, not I think, I'm sure in the boat, there is caste. The caste system was still here. But when they started to travel, because of the, like small spaces, everyone was together. And according to books I read, some people were fighting actually, for the food, for even just for women to and men to be, together, it was a problem. And also for the food, some people were not eating meat, or some people. So yeah, the caste system maybe survived a few days on the ship, but when they arrived, sorry, in Martinique, it's completely disappear because, like my supervisor was mentioning, there is also this a sort of caste system in Martinique, with all the origins and especially the colonial like hegemonic pressure, and so no, it didn't really last. People just put they were just Indian for people. That's it. There is no difference and so on. But I think it would be at first maybe it was difficult, in some way for some people maybe to reclaim their caste system, but no, it didn't last at all in the Caribbean in general, not in Martinique, but in general. Or
Okay.
maybe, if I can say so, for the religion aspect, the Brahman and the Pandits, maybe, but in the general life, no, I don't think so.
All right. So there's another question from Gopalakrishnan. He is asking about the return of a few people from the Martinique to India. Did they carry the identity back in the same or influenced by Caribbean?
I wish I can understand, respond correctly to this question, but we don't know. We have no idea. They really try to trace back this history, but from now there is no proof, that no, they really didn't. Because it was just a short trip, 5 years. So I think those one just try to forget about it, and they were not allowed. So yeah, there is no
Yeah, I
influence.
think one good idea will be to start recording. At least some of the songs that people are singing, you may want to
Yeah.
record, and there will be elderly people who some sort of oral histories can be documented. I mean, you're already doing that. So we
Yes,
have to.
exactly. I mean, that's why I'm young, but I wish I started earlier. But because some Tamil speakers are not longer here, so I wish I was older, to start this work. But yeah,
So
I
good.
started on my own.
So I think we should stay in touch, and I think with no other questions, we will thank you. And also, I would like to thank Vignesh for making the connections, Vicky. So he probably took you around while you were here in India. There's one question that has come up from Samantha. Falls
Yes,
in her memory.
yeah, it was mentioned
Some
actually in the PowerPoints, but let me just
Yeah,
copy and paste maybe.
in the bibliography you have given, right?
Yeah, it is in this last slide. Maybe if I put it in the chat, it's okay. I just copy and paste.
Yeah, maybe you can post it there or ask
Yeah,
Subu, can you post it in the chat box? Copy and paste it, please.
I will do it if
Oh,
it's
okay,
working.
fine,
Yeah, I
fine,
will
fine.
do it, no problem. No problem. Just a few minutes. Okay, and I think it's here.
Yeah, that's it. So
Yeah,
people should.
that's
Lovely.
yeah.
So may I thank you for this wonderful, both of you for this wonderful
Thank you.
presentations. I wish Dr. Patricia was there to take some questions,
Yeah,
maybe in next time. And
exactly.
well, as I said, I would like to thank Vicky for introducing both of you to us and to this larger audience. And we should commit ourselves to work together for more such scholarly
Thank
deliberations.
you.
Thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you again. See you soon in
Bye.
India.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.